March 28th at Town Hall. We are the Budget Committee getting ready to meet. So we will rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All righty. So before we get too far, I was just going to make a quick amendment to the agenda under new business. We're going to, Andrew Cutter is going to provide a analysis of the town budget. So I'll put you under that. So we'll get through the bylaws and everything. And then, but before we get that far, the fun begins. We have some new people here. Our Board of Selectmen, we have Brent Lemire and Bob Leary.
Right. I accompanied Bob tonight to introduce him to you. Bob is going to be the board rep to the Budget Committee. And since I've been here a couple hours during my stay in town, I figured that it would be proper thing to do to come with him and introduce him and try to give you the report of the town, and so that he can become familiar with what the operation.
Absolutely. Welcome both to you.
No lie, I begged him. I owe him.
And then we welcome back Rob Myers from the school board as the liaison there. So then we move on to the election of chair and vice chair for the Budget Committee. So open the floor to nominations for chair. I'm sorry? This half of, the new members. I was going to do the elections and then introduce everybody, but we can do that. Jessica, why don't you start with introduce yourself to everybody on TV.
I'm Jessica Martin. This is my second year on Budget Committee.
All right.
Hi, everyone. I'm Andrew Cutter. This will be my 5th year on Budget Committee, but not consecutively. I took 2 years off. It's nice to be back and look forward to working with the committee again.
Hello, Jen Burke, 4th year, just recently re-elected for a 1-year term.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Nikki, 40 is going to be my 2nd year.
Hi, I'm William Hayes. This is my first go around with the Budget Committee, first year.
Carrie Douglas, this is actually starting my 6th year on the Budget Committee.
Brian Hodgkins, starting my 2nd.
I'm Michelle Flynn. I'm the recorder. Been here for about 13 years.
Oh, yeah, at least.
It's a fixture. And then we have the introductions. Yep. So, Rob, you want to reintroduce yourself? Or?
Rob Myers is the school board member.
Since I went out of order. So
Very well done.
Excellent. All right. So now we'll open the floor to nominations for chair.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to nominate yourself as chair.
Oh, thank you. Are there?
I'll second, sir.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations?
And so, I have the permission to do the voting tonight
Okay.
by Mr. Leary.
Excellent. All right. Are there any other nominations to be considered?
So I was going to nominate Andrew Cutter as chair.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
1 second.
I'll second.
Excellent. So so we have Andrew and myself. So will there be any motions to be made? So we vote first.
Well, I think it's discussion at this point.
Discuss, go ahead. All right, vote for the first motion. Clearly, I need Cindy back. So no, just kidding. She has big shoes to fill. All right, so discussion on me first, since that was the first nomination.
Yeah. So, the reason why I voted you, Carrie, is I think you've done a nice job, right? And especially as vice chair of the committee for how many years?
Several.
Right. Several years, and then filling in as acting chair and arranging and coordinating, right?
Thank you.
I very much am humbled and appreciate the nomination in the second for chair as well. I think just on a personal note, right, given my travel schedule, right, it may be I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, right, but it may be a little challenging towards budget season. It's completely the will of the committee, right? And so with that, that's why I made my motion.
Okay. All right, so I believe we move to the first one, right? So can I make that motion, or is that?
No, the motion's been made.
All right, so
So you just need to take the vote.
yeah, well, the vote for, I would myself because I went
Correct.
first. All right, so those in favor of voting for Carrie Douglas as chair, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay, any opposed? And I will abstain. Oh.
So well, I feel like I.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
Not a problem. I won't. So, all right. So that's what, how many people we have here? 9, so 7-1-1. You abstain, 7-6.
Did you abstain?
I abstain, 6-1-2.
6-2-1.
6-2-1.
I mean,
6-1-2-1.
6-1-2.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. A vote of confidence. Thank you very much.
Carrie.
And then we will take nominations for vice chair.
Can I nominate Andrew Cutter?
Absolutely. You can nominate Andrew Cutter.
Second.
And there's a second. Are there any other nominations for consideration?
Who seconded?
Jen. All right. So discussion.
Again, thank you very much. I'm humbled.
I think you do an excellent job. I'm very excited to see you back on the budget committee.
Thank you.
The geeky part of me was like, yes, spreadsheets.
I have in front of me.
No joke. That's how we found our house and location spreadsheets. It's all good. So all those in favor of Andrew Cutter as vice chair of the budget committee, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And then no abstentions.
Aye.
You're abstaining?
So
Two
6-1.
abstain.
6-1-2.
602. 702.
7-0-2.
7-0.
We have 9. We actually have a full house this time. Should add up to 9.
Congratulations to both of you.
Well, thank you very much. And again, thank you. So public input, we have somebody from the, way to kick off the season. Public input.
Brian Burke, 1 Westview Drive. First, I'd like to say congratulations, Carrie, on your
Oh,
new
thank you.
position, and Andrew yourself, and to all the new members. So I'm here this evening because a week or so ago, I reached out to the 4 members of the Budget Committee that voted in not supporting the teacher contract. And I appreciate Carrie getting back to me and Cindy getting back to me with some good input and some information as far as their thought process, and some things would be helpful as far as possibly going forward. So again, I'm here tonight because I didn't hear back from Brian and I didn't hear back from Jessica. And right now we're going through the process of negotiating again with the LEA
Okay.
in hopes that we'll have a special meeting to bring forward to the budget committee, to bring forward to a judge, and then have a special meeting with the town. So I'm here this evening to ask both Brian and Jessica if you could share with me why you didn't support the contract, and then what it would take for you to support the contract.
I do actually have an email drafted to you that I haven't put the finishing touches on, that I do plan to send by the end of day tomorrow.
Okay.
Is this a public input or is this a school update?
This sounds more like school update, but
No, this is public input. I'm asking the question.
so he's asking as a tax resident.
I said,
The only thing, a technicality.
Yeah.
Public input is only for.
But they don't have to answer.
Yeah, I was gonna
I'm asking
say,
a question. I got that.
It's not a question and answer period, Brent.
Yeah.
What you can, in only because the board might get involved, might be asked questions they don't necessarily have the answers to.
Yeah.
So your
Well, it's-
public input could be,
But Brent, I'm
Stated.
asking them personally why they didn't, not the board.
okay,
Like I said, I reached out to the 4 individuals who did not support the contract, and just inquiring what it would take for them to support the contract, them personally.
right.
They don't have to answer if they don't want to. I mean, they're public
Okay.
servants. They can
Yeah,
email me if
as
they
long as
want
you
to.
know it's not necessarily, public input
No,
is not a question and answer period. Okay.
Fully understand.
No disrespect. It's just that it's public input from you to the board.
Yep.
And to put the board in that light to have to answer the question is not necessarily, that's not what public input
Again,
is designed for.
I don't feel like I'm putting the board in that position. I'm putting 2 individuals. And I'm just looking for feedback as to what it would take for them to support a contract.
So how about
Right.
we have them continue to consider and then respond back to you?
That'd be fantastic. I'd appreciate it.
I'll encourage them to
Thank you. I'd
respond back
appreciate it.
because I can't force anybody to do anything. Just ask my kids.
Like I said, I'm hoping that we can be successful and
Mm-hmm.
bring forward a contract that you can support.
Absolutely.
and Madam Chairman, if I may,
Sure.
when we talk about election results,
That would
I'm
definitely-
assuming this is going to be part of that discussion.
Absolutely. I think that would be good because I'm sure our new members also have some input because we'll have a new board voting because as much as,
Yep.
so.
Just to answer your question,
Sure.
I've been out sick for like the last week, so I'm going to be getting around to it.
That'd be great. I'd appreciate it.
Do you have a timeline? Oh, it'll come under election. Sorry, it's some school board update. We'll do it then. All right, any other?
Can I just ask one other thing? And I don't know if you've done it in the past or not. And I'm certain there are other viewers aside from myself, especially with this large of a group. When you guys vote, and there's yes votes, no votes, you can never tell who votes for and who votes against.
Okay,
Is it possible that you can raise hands?
sure. We could give it a try. And if I forget, I'm sure somebody here will remind me.
It's just, I think it would be helpful, especially to the public, because a lot of, and even yourself sometimes as chair or like Cindy's chair, I know say, well, who did what, but you can never tell exactly.
It's also in the minutes.
What's that?
It's also in the minutes.
Right, but it's not a bad idea to say
No, it's
aye.
not, but it is documented.
No, absolutely.
Just an idea.
No,
Thank you.
that's good input. Thank you. All right, so review and
The
accept.
numbers documented, but not who voted how
Right.
on every
Yep.
vote.
Oh, okay,
It's
sure.
not in the minutes who voted.
Got it.
Sometimes it shows up on Facebook. But
But no, it's a good idea because a lot of the voices get mixed in when you do a voice vote. So it's excellent feedback. So review and acceptance of minutes. I was informed that we do have 2 sets of minutes that are out there. I'm not sure that I've seen them. So we will have to table them unless, no, we'll table them until next meeting because I looked in my email and I don't know that they got around to us.
May I ask, Madam Chairman, what the dates of those minutes are?
January 10th and February 9th. So it would be deliberative and the hearing, I believe. There were some adjustments and modifications made at those
yeah, we met
meetings
after.
that we had to revote recommendations.
Yep.
So,
Are those on the Google Drive or I didn't get any emails.
I will honestly say that I looked for the PDF and Word documents.
Okay.
Don't do Google Drive, so they're not in my email. Sorry.
I'll send the minutes out to everybody.
Excellent.
Thank you,
As
Michelle.
long as they have their town emails.
I believe everybody's been set up.
Okay, I'll send them out.
Okay.
Thank you.
So that comes to correspondence. We send out a copy of the bylaws, the town expenditures for last year in Excel, and then the school budget also in Excel, but we're just getting started. So then the reports, town business, general update, fire station, water, and anything else you think we should know.
Okay, and we may be at a disadvantage because I don't necessarily have all of the questions you asked before, but I will try to.
I don't know that we have to. We're just looking for an update.
Okay. I apparently one of the issues that one of the members had is that from January to now, there was a zero in the appropriations. Well, we can't put appropriations until the town budget's approved. So now that has been loaded into the system. So now you will see the appropriation listed.
Yes.
But legally, we can't do it until the MS forms are sent to the Department of Revenue.
Made sense. And as suspected, just wanted to confirm.
Yeah. So basically, we deficit spend from January to March. And every town does it that's on this schedule, or January to April, actually. So, but it is being overlaid into the system now, and you will start to see the appropriation versus the expense. Fire department, the water and propane costs, they were greater than expected because we had to take over the propane expenses from the new firehouse from January on. And the problem was that sometimes the overhead doors had to be open quite a bit. It was an expense we did not expect, but it was a massive new area that we had to heat.
Right.
And
Fortunately, though, that should be an anomaly, though, and not necessarily baseline.
We're
trend.
hoping. We're hoping. It is a much bigger area, and so we're anticipating the same with the water. Now, the water, one thing we did not anticipate, and we really didn't know, was that the sprinkler system has to be on a separate line. And I should have known that, but from years ago. But the problem was the water for the sprinkler and the domestic are on two different lines, and we have to pay $300 a month just for the sprinkler line. That's in addition to the domestic water. So we're still under budget, for the construction. The only thing, the fire department is moving items in there. They cannot move the equipment in until the pad is poured in the front, the concrete pad in front of the station. Once that is done and cured, then the heavy equipment can be moved in. Next few weeks, we'll be telling, weather permitting. Dog kennel furnace replacement is almost completed. The problem was we had to use electric heat all winter until we were able to get that. So, but it's almost complete. Talon Hall is on a temporary heating system. We've scheduled the replacement for the summer. That's the best we can do at this point. We hired a new police officer this month, and luckily he was fully certified. He came from the town of Hudson, so that will help us. That we will not have to hire a replacement while it goes to the police academy. Sorry.
Okay.
So we lucked out there. And right now we have only one police officer vacancy, and it's only because one of the full-time officers is on workers' comp, injury leave. So we are not familiar. We do not know what the status is of that. But other than that, the fire station punch list item is currently being addressed. The site work will be finished in the spring. Well, we're close. And like I said, the concrete apron has to be poured. We're anticipating moving in mid-April and occupying the building.
Nice. All right. Any other indications on where we stand with the PFOAs? Because those legal fees keep racking up.
Not yet. We still have to enter into some more non-public negotiations with them. Our attorneys, the issue is they're waiting to see what all the laws are. There's several bills filed at the legislature, and how what the situation is going to be in Merrimack. And we do not want the town. We want to keep the town in the best position possible. So we do not want to settle anything until we find out that we can be in the best position to do what's best for the town. So right now, everything's up in the air at this point, still.
May I ask a question? Just because I haven't been that in tune recently, what is the plan for the current fire station?
We have not discussed that yet.
Okay.
There are so many options out there. We're going to be soliciting input, but we want to wait until the new building is occupied completely. And
it was the will of the voter, right, in 2018 to keep the building standing.
in basically, yes.
Okay.
There was no plan for people to vote for, so it was come back. I interpreted it as come back to us with a plan or options for plans.
Right. And I'll be honest with you, the previous board, we have no problem. Whatever people want to do, that's okay. We just want to do the right thing. And we know the building cannot be occupied. It does not meet any code at all. So it cannot be occupied as as an office or anything like that without major
Which is why we did the whole project to begin with.
Right. So basically, it can be used for a garage. It can be used for storage.
Cold storage.
And but we will be dealing with that as soon as the fire station's occupied.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the town? All right, moving on to the school.
School. First off with the election, Brian Bork and Christina Harrison were both reelected and renominated for chair and vice chair on the school board. The district completed its ALICE training. I don't know if anybody went to it, which is the new safety procedures in case there's a concern in the building. Students need to lock down. That's going to be rolled out between now and next spring. Fully to the students. Schools seem to have a pretty good hand on handling it based on age groups. So looking forward to that going forward. Financial side, pretty much where we left off. We do have the 3 ongoing vestibule projects. GMS is pretty much done. They're waiting for the sign. I went by today. It's still not up. That's supposed to be any time now. CHS will be done this summer. The funding was received from the state for that, the 80/20. LMS is kind of on hold. We got $100,000 from the state, but they wouldn't go. We needed 217, so we still have to figure an additional 217,000. So we have to figure out the funding on
Is there a
that.
timeline on when that grant? has to
No,
be-
Corey said that was put into a hold, I believe, until later on this summer. So it's like a continuing amount.
So we can always come forward with an.
So the 100,000 set aside for us, and if any further funds are available, we can reapply for those at a later date. I apologize.
I was thinking even. So my understanding of that is it's not just because it's redoing the entryway, it's because it's for safety. It's actually rebuilding the entryway.
Well, it's redoing it. I believe from what I remember the plans, the doors will remain the same. It'll be a
Right.
new,
Right, no, but the
awning in the
state's
middle.
reason for not giving us more was
they
that,
capped it at
oh,
100,000.
they did cap it,
Yeah, they
okay.
capped it at 100,000, but we're hoping.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm not following along on the discussion.
So there's the LMS, there's currently the 2 side entrances.
When Homeland Security did walkthroughs, they pointed out certain things in each building that were a concern. And these are three of the big ones, the security of the entrance of the buildings.
Right.
So that's why the GMS project went through, just to make them more secure. CHS is, I think, a little more cosmetic, moving some locks, moving some cameras. So it's a much smaller project, but LMS is a pretty big job. They're gonna, from what I understand, put a central awning, the 2 side, the doors now that go into the gym and go into the cafeteria now become secondary doors, locked at all times, and the main entrance will be a vestibule in the middle to give office view. It's all about getting straight views to the office, so you can see people coming to the building.
Also creates a clear entrance.
Clear entrance, but it's getting people so they can see who's coming towards the building. But that one's a much bigger project, and because the money was capped at 100,000.
Just so you know, Homeland Security, the state is going around to all of the schools with the resurgence of issues in the school systems. They are going around statewide to ensure that all our schools are safe and trying to make recommendations to.
And it's hard because you want schools to be bright, airy places. So I know so many schools have walls of windows and everything. So it's ongoing. And really, other than that, I did check in the fence as soon as the grounds, the kindergarten we put to bed as soon as the grounds thawed for that. And another good thing, I won't get too far into it, our new food service director is doing an amazing job. Her numbers are through the roof on reimbursed lunches through the federal government, doing a phenomenal job. And I think that's about it, I believe.
Okay.
Oh, and I should just mention, we do have the negotiations starting up again, hopefully to see where they go. They're on a crunch timeline. I will have to defer to Brian. Is the timeline as soon as possible? So there will be a timeline if they progress to get it done. And we'll fill you in on that as soon as we have it.
All right, so that was gonna be my question, was timeline, so it's as soon as possible.
I think it's right.
We're hoping to do it by the end of the school year.
Yeah.
So because this is up, maybe we have a discussion on that, or?
We're there now, go ahead.
So, under no means no, right? Is this going to some type of election, or how is this going to be? What's your vision for?
Well, the way the process works is first we have to agree, obviously, with the LEA on a contract. If that's approved, then we would bring it forward to the budget committee for them to either approve or not approve it. And then we have to go before a judge to show an emergency need to have it, to have a special meeting. Then you have to get 30-day notice for a special meeting. Then you can set up a date for voting. So it'd be an election for that one item.
Okay. Now, is the support staff also included in these negotiations? That's separate still. Okay.
They're a separate union.
Can I just ask Brian, did we reach out to them?
Have we?
Can we
Not this
renegotiate?
time, no.
Do you have any plans to do so?
Not at this moment. It's under consideration, but right now we're working with the LEA.
And I guess I would just add, at the last school board meeting, we had a pretty lengthy discussion about why it failed. I know Brian approached members to see why they didn't vote for it, and Christina had sent out, and I think it got a fair number of responses why people in the community didn't support it. So we took those into account when we talked about what we felt would pass. Because in my opinion, I think I can say this, but you're right. I don't think we can put the same, you can't put the same one up again for vote.
Right.
Because no means no. But we did seek community input, school budget input to see if we can get our school budget committee input to see if we can get some ideas of what we could do to make it pass if the community support it.
Okay.
I think it's excellent that you got community input then. That's great.
I don't know the numbers, but I think she got a fair number of responses.
No, that's great because sometimes you don't get that. So it's good to get. So thank you to the community who are helping with that process. So, are there any other questions for the school?
No, I mean, just on the contract, as we're talking about it, right? My view personally is that I had teachers approach me saying that I hope that fails, right? And so as a voter, right, it becomes very conflicted, right? Because I have the school and, yes, we need to support our educators, which I'm all for, but at the same time, I'm hearing directly from several educators saying it's better for my family if this fails because of the health plan, right? And so it's very conflicted. So whatever we can do to solve that, I think will go a long way.
Everything I heard was the same thing, that it was the health insurance issue, that the green plan that they're currently under was pulled off the table with no option of going back to it, even though the costs had gone down the last couple of years. It seemed like that was the wrong hill to die on, to me.
And it's funny because from the budget committee standpoint, the members who, I don't want to speak for the folks that voted against it, the lack of reduction in insurance was a major contributing factor to why the budget committee as a whole didn't support it. So it's definitely one of those double-edged swords for certain.
Yeah, and just to add, right, I should also state that I'm a fan of making the insurance plans to be more in line with industry standard, right? Because I think the plans today are out of touch, quite frankly. And I do acknowledge the work that the school board put into that and to try and bridge that gap. Although not perfect, it was a step in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just say the people that approached me about when I asked what would it take for you to support it, I think the budget committee did have a lot of sway with the numbers when Cindy gave the presentation. That was the main thing I heard. I think from the teacher standpoint, I'm a teacher myself. Teachers with families, they're going to want to stay with. So I think that one, throw a dart. Where I don't mean to be callous, but throw a dart. They're going to pick which one's
Is there,
best for their family.
from a funding perspective, and I know this is to be determined, right? I don't know the legality of this, but is there a way to offset the cost with unexpended fund balance in the school? Can you reserve against it in using money that's left over in your budget to pay for the teacher contract for the first year?
Ooh, see, the concern I would have with that then is you're artificially decreasing the cost of it in the first year.
I'm just throwing out ideas.
So,
Well, if you ask them legally,
Legally.
if you had a contract in place by June 30th, because you'd have to have a contract in place in order to utilize end-of-year funds. And
That might be an issue with the auditors.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
To me, that's
I'm not sure. But
Yeah,
I think that may be an issue with the auditors.
to me that would also.
It's
I mean,
one to ask
that's-
legal first, but I mean, just any contract that you're going to use end-of-year funds would have to be on the contract before the fiscal year end.
To me, I mean, personally, not as a school board member, but to me, if you're doing that, then you should be asking for it in the taxes, not personally. That's just how I feel.
And the way I'm looking at this, right, is maybe there's an opportunity. I have not gone through the school budget yet, although I did receive it. Just to kind of give an overview of what I see in that budget from last year, if that's helpful. Obviously, it's an approved budget, so you can do it. It's truly just informational for the school board, and I have the same prepared for the town. But I suspect that there's a large number of funds in that budget that could easily offset the teacher contract.
let's see, for me, it'd be an opportunity, an incentive to start pulling that money out of the budget instead of allowing it to continue in the budget. If we truly want the contract to pass, let's actually make those reductions instead of assuming that we'll get them back in a future tax offset.
Sure. And there's several ways to approach it, right?
Right, no. My only concern is I don't want, if we went that route, I don't want people to feel like we're selling low, because then the next year you have to pay the full freight on that.
Okay.
And then it spikes it.
Things to consider.
Yeah, no. But I like where you're going, but I just think the way I would approach it would be to just pull out what I feel is excess funding to offset it that way.
I'll just go on record by saying also that I would not be in favor of putting my signature on $350,000 of unassigned fund balance to pay the teachers a contract.
Okay.
I think it's the will of the people as a whole in the town to make that decision.
I'm just hearing time and time again that it's the top priority for the school, right? And so throwing out creative ideas.
I don't think it's the responsibility of 5 members of the school board to make that kind of expenditure,
Understood.
especially on a contract.
But I like the thinking outside the box. So let's do that. All right. So we went through this financial. Any other questions, concerns, comments for the school before we move into?
Well, I just wanted to say why I voted in favor of the contract was I felt that it was the price we had to pay right now to get rid of the green plan. And that it was something where I do think that the plan needs to get in line with the industry standard, and that while initially it was a little tough to swallow, that in the future we could then work towards changing that split between the employer paid, individual paid. I felt like it was initially, again, I understood a lot of reasons why people were against it, but I felt like it was the opportunity to get rid of the green plan.
So I'll just say ditto. I really struggled with the total dollar amount of the contract, and I was really on the fence, wanting to support our teachers, but I felt like the good faith of the teachers coming back and saying that we'll accept the yellow plan helped me to kind of swallow the total $1.1 million that contract presented with. So there's definitely two sides. It's one of those things, two sides to every story for certain.
I was very close on that one, but my concern is it took us this long to be able to make that change. I honestly have a hard time believing we'll be able to get it back down to 80% unless we start moving, or 82% unless we start. It took us a very long time to make this change. I think it'd take a very long time for us to start moving back to where I think the budget committee's historical request has been for that funding.
Right.
So,
And then there was the whole component of the Cadillac plan
Right.
and the tax implications that will have a couple of years from now that I think, long-term, the school board needs to be looking at, the budget committee absolutely has to be looking at. So.
and one of the things I did mention when we discussed is I understand the emotion. It's a very emotionally driven decision. It's a very scary decision for some people who haven't made that change. I know when my husband's company made that change, it was a very difficult. We looked at each other like, how much more is this going to cost us? And then we went through the year and we realized, the reduction in our premiums and the fact that we never hit our deductible, we actually saved money. But we had to go through that to experience that and to be won over by that. So my suggestion had been maybe we did a shorter term contract so that people could get through. We understand what the risks are instead of making long-term decisions based on unfounded what concerns that may or may not be founded. So if we had a year of experience and we're like, okay, well, now we understand what the implications are long-term. But we're making a long-term decision with some unknown facts. That was my concern. And if anybody else wants to speak to
Sure.
that.
One thing they brought up in the deliberative sessions was they were comparing Litchfield to all these other towns. And one thing I brought up was business-wise, you really can't. I mean, I think the closest town they had double or triple the amount of businesses we have, and that would mean a lot more tax revenue. You keep putting that burden on this town that doesn't have a lot of business. And it's not that I'm against teachers or anything like that, but I think that's the way they try to make people feel. Like I'm not against that. I'm against taxes keep going up, and you don't realize that we're a small town. We don't have a lot of business. If you want like a higher salary or something like that, then maybe you do need to go to another town that has that.
And then we also have to look at the fact that you run into educational issues. We have first year, second year teachers constantly coming in and out of towns. I hate to knock a town, but you look at towns like North Conway, just because they're so north. Guarantee you go onto a website right now, what are you going to see? North Conway, because teachers get out of college, they go there for 1 or 2 years to get the experience, and they leave. They go to Franklin 1 or 2 years, they leave. You don't want to get into that either. You hate to say it. Yeah, I agree. My taxes have gone up, but if we want our kids to have a great education, we need to keep the teachers here, and you got to compete with the towns that are the haves and have-not. You have to. I mean, there's no way around it, or else you're going to be losing teachers every year. I mean,
I look at how the taxes keep going up in this town.
I see it too. It's just, you have to say, police, fire, and schools, you need them, whether you want to pay for them or not. You need them.
But when you talk about the town, you look at their budget as opposed to the school.
But it's apples to oranges. I mean, it is. You've got a set number, you've got a set number of, I don't mean this in a bad way, set number of firemen, set number of policemen, you have a set need of cars. One student moving into town with an intensive IEP can throw the budget up through the roof by hundreds of thousands of dollars. A family moving into town with 6 kids, you need another teacher. There's so many things that happen in a school that don't happen in a police force or fire department that, and believe me, I'm the first one to say, I don't want to be spending money we don't have to and keep the taxes as reasonable as we can. You have to look at it. I keep seeing on What's Up Litchfield, and I agree 100%. Schools bring families to towns. I hate to say it. You could build the nicest house. Boy, hopefully nobody in Franklin's watching. You build the nicest house in Franklin right now. People aren't going to buy it because of the school system. It's a tough. People will move to Litchfield over some other towns in the local area because of the schools. People will move to Londonderry based on the schools, and it's an investment. But unfortunately,
also driving up taxes huge when you do that.
I know, and everybody here knows, and you try and keep it as low as you can, but it's that, who was it that said taxes and death are the only 2 things you can count on?
Right?
I've said it when I was chair years ago, and I will say it again. When you focus strictly on taxes, we're all elected we're a service agent. The town is a service agency. The school is service. We're here to service people. We only have a limited pot of money to do that service with. In New Hampshire, we're the 47th lowest tax burden state in the country. All we pay is property taxes. That is all we're paying. We're not paying income tax. We're not paying sales tax. We're not paying most of the taxes that any other state pays. The towns and school districts, by design of the state of New Hampshire, rely on property taxes. So to focus on that is not fair because we need to provide a service. The town needs to, the school district.
How is that not fair?
No,
If I can't pay my property taxes, I can't live in the town.
Well, I understand that, but the thing is, we've got to focus.
Well, who's it fair to? If it's not fair to.
We have to look at the big picture.
The big picture is whether you can afford to live in the town or not.
But it comes down to, we all have to make that decision.
Right.
Right.
Again, I would vote no because you keep raising my taxes.
Well, and I will just go back to you and say, when you mentioned that if the teachers didn't like the job here, they could go elsewhere.
They can.
If I don't like the taxes that I'm paying here, then I should go somewhere. I don't mind paying it.
Why should I have to? This is my home.
I understand. I'm just trying to look at the big picture. We have services to provide. We have children educate. It's not that easy. We're not as lucky as other states. All we have is a property tax to deal with. And God knows the state does not provide adequate funding for education.
And I think that's one of the things we need to consider too, is as much as I hate paying more in property taxes, the state's downshifted those costs and they've also cut their expenses. So, I mean, I'm a fiscal conservative and I will look for the best bang for our buck, but we also have to understand that sometimes you're stuck. And we just have to make sure that the money that we are taxing is spent responsibly, wisely, and achieves value. And so from one of my concerns with the school budget isn't so much that, it's just how much we give back. So we're taxing a lot of money and we're saying we need it and then we don't use it all. So then you're telling me next year I need more money when you didn't spend everything you needed the year before, but I'm going to increase your budget ananyway.
And that's certainly
So that's where a lot of my concerns come from. We need to me, and to your point, Andrew, of trying to get the numbers better, looking better for the school budget contract. It's to hone in how much extra we're taxing and reduce that number so that it offsets increases such as the contracts. So it's also going to be a philosophical debate. We're not all going to come in here to an agreement.
No, certainly not.
So we'll just have to, and it's going to be fun once budget committee season starts in full bore.
If I can just make 2 points.
Yep.
real quick.
No, you can't.
What?
I asked the chair.
Well,
And I think Brent will agree
You
with
should
me,
tell him.
that bringing business in doesn't necessarily bring you in a lot of income. Business doesn't necessarily bring income. If anything, it may end up costing the town more money in services. So that's my first point, and you can argue that if you want. The others, I just want to clarify, because we're talking about percentage numbers when we're talking about the insurance. And we're saying that we're looking to lower the number for the percentage,
All right.
correct? Because the number was going up at 80-20.
Mhm.
Just keep in mind, when you're comparing the two plans, we're talking as far as insurance, green to orange, you can't compare 80-20 in green, 80-20 in the orange yellow.
Right, and those will come up when we do the negotiations, so, and discussions. So we'll go on
Eric, can I
to,
just, and I know it's been said, just point out one other thing. Even if we level fund or even decrease the school budget next year, it's still, what did we figure out?
a lot.
600 and something thousand? There's still,
It's not that much, but.
whatever it
We're
was,
losing 4%.
4% a year.
of
So
the
it's gonna
thing.
go up 4% of 22 million every year that the state's lowering the
I don't
funding.
understand. So the taxes are gonna keep going up, but
Yep.
as to your point too, businesses don't have kids that go to school. So when you attract more and more families into a town, families are the ones bringing kids. Kids are gonna be going to the school, which again, ups the, how much more you have to pay for the schools.
Do you,
All right.
do you want to strip mall next to your house?
All right, we're going to circular arguments. We're gonna move on.
You could argue all night.
So that moves us,
Discussion's good.
it is
It's very healthy.
going in a circle though. So let's go on to member input and new business. So
Madam Chairman, did we skip over election results?
we did, actually, you are correct. We did skip over election results. All right, let's go back to election results. I got too excited about the. All right, so this is the bylaws. So which one would you like to go first? School or town?
Town.
Town. All right, town one. That was the long ballot. So do you want, were there anything that stood out to anybody on the results that they want to talk about first before we can go through?
No, I think from an operating budget perspective, overwhelmingly passed, which I think is a very positive sign, right? And I think it being very close to the default budget also helped in that sense.
Mhm.
That's just my view. Again, I'll just because I'm on it, right? Police contract, I was glad to see personally that passed as well.
Mhm.
Also by quite a margin. Yep. And, I think pretty much everything on the town side made sense to me. Right? I don't know if anyone had any different opinions.
Do you want to go, I mean, yeah, so does anybody else have any comments? Operating budget of human service agencies and purchase. Way to go on the town flag. Did good.
Okay.
I don't know that there was anything that was overly surprising on this one. So I think that, does anybody have any comments or input or anything they'd like to discuss?
No, just that we worked hard to stay within the tax cap and still to provide the services that we need to for the residents. We have some issues. We'll have some issues coming up this year, but we're going to we'll deal with them, and we'll let you know if we do have any issues.
Okay. Let's see. And then to the school one. Let's see.
On the school side, for Article 1, it was a much closer margin. Still passed by quite a few votes, but it was much closer than it was on the town side. I think likely because of the tax impact. Article 2, we just talked about at length, so I think I'll skip over that one for now.
Yeah. Article 3 broke my heart, I will admit.
Article 3 failed, yeah. What is the school board's position on Article 3, given that did fail?
We haven't reevaluated that for going forward for next year, so it'll be up for discussion, I'm sure, as we get towards next budget season.
I'm hoping before next school year that becomes a discussion. I personally know a lot of families who are evaluating their decisions for going forward based on what the school's going to do with that one. So I'm hoping, as a parent, that the school is going to take a serious look at what they're going to do in the middle school. So Article 4.
That's all the questions I have.
I have a question on Article 4. And, but for, you're hiring a math tutor, why?
Struggling students. Students that are
But
struggling.
if they're not learning, the lessons that are being taught, why can't their parents pay for that? What does the town have?
Oh,
to pay
because
for?
of any subject, and this is personal, not as a school board member. Any subject, you're just setting a kid up for failure long term if they don't have math. I mean, if they fall behind in math, it's like almost like learning a language. If you don't have the basics,
Right, I understand they need to
more
learn it, but I
advanced,
guess
so.
why does the town have to pay for it if they're getting the same education everybody else is? And if
Not
not
everybody learns the
Some
same.
kids need more
I
help than
believe
others.
state law requires
An adequate education.
that.
does it?
And that's part of the adequacy issue. State law requires,
I've been in school, but I mean, if I failed, it was.
We have a,
well,
it's
no,
different than the title.
To back up
I.
for a second, the key is when most of us, obviously,
Yeah.
when most of us were in school, you're right. If you failed, you failed, and you didn't fail. It's the argument we use with everybody. If you take your driver's test and fail by that standard that we used to go by, you should never drive because you failed.
No, you study hard.
No,
and
you
go back and
failed
take the
in
test
fourth
again.
grade. You failed in driver's test. You failed. That's why competencies are coming forward. We want these kids to succeed. Everybody's going to succeed at a different level. We all do different things. That's where this comes in. A struggling student in math, and if one had to pass, I would have said the math. Personally, I would have said the math tutor was a greater need because a lot of kids who struggle in math, I guarantee you go into these schools and you ask the kids what class do they like the least. A lot of them are going to say math. You need to catch those kids up, and that's hopefully what this will do is catch the kids up to grade level so that they're not floundering when they go from elementary to middle, from middle to high, and they just hate it all the way through. So that's where it comes from, getting the kids an adequate education. And you have to, I mean, if you put somebody that's, whatever job you're doing, you have to remember these teachers are in a room with a group of kids who the three of us have no idea what's going on. You guys are on grade level, you guys are excelling, and they're teaching to all the different levels and within grade level, and that's where that person's going to help.
Isn't that why we're paying for a curriculum though that is supposed to be good for everybody in the class? I mean, you're going to have some that are really great at things, some that aren't. But I guess why does the town have to pay?
Again, it's an adequate education. It's getting those kids on grade
and
level.
it's required.
Are you asking why don't the teachers provide that service?
No,
saying why
I'm saying why
parents
the
pay for it.
if a student is
Right,
failing,
but why wouldn't the teachers provide that service? They have an obligation, let's say, to teach everybody, those that excel and those that don't. For those that don't, a little bit more time needs to be spent with them, like a tutor would.
sure, and I
They
guess
have the ability, they have the core competency to help that student proceed. Why wouldn't they do that? Again, to your point, why a separate tutor?
I wouldn't look at it, maybe the word tutor, if we look back at it again, is the wrong term, maybe an enrichment facilitator. It's getting that student that kickstart at times, maybe it's out of the classroom, maybe it's in the classroom, maybe it's a separate time, get that kickstart to catch up with the rest of his peers. So for the next 4 years, he's not struggling behind.
Right, I mean, as much as I say that, I am for a tutor.
Yeah.
You know, back, when I went to school, which is a long time ago, that teacher would take extra time with a student that was failing.
I won't get into the differences when we were in school, but you have to remember when we were in school, the classrooms were, everybody was the same. The kids are a little ahead or in their own class. Kids that were behind are in another room. Today you've got them all there, and there's not always the time to.
Maybe we should
But
reconsider.
as far as relying on parents, I couldn't teach my son math. I mean, I'm
no,
good
I'm
at
not
math.
saying that the parent should. I'm saying it should be the parents' responsibility.
somebody.
We're funding a school,
All right.
around the school. So if they're failing, then the parents should pay.
State funds tutors.
Reading.
So-
Reading.
Again, as a fiscal conservative, I would typically agree with you, but I also, and my son, I will honestly say, will probably never use the math tutor directly because he's bored by the math as it is. But there are students in his class who are struggling, and this tutor helps bring them up to speed. So that allows the teacher to actually help kids like mine who are bored out of their minds actually focus, because the kid who needs help is getting help outside the classroom in another way. So the teacher is now freed up to not necessarily try to bring this kid up to where they feel they should be, because now they can teach the whole class a little, because the kid's been caught up by another person. And sometimes different teaching styles help with different people, right? So the teacher can explain it in one way, and then the tutor can explain it in another way. And one of those two ways might click better for this kid, which then helps the classroom, because this kid who was maybe disruptive or maybe in tears because I don't understand what's going on is now starting to be able to keep up. So it actually helps every kid in that classroom when you help the one kid who's struggling. because that teacher no longer has to focus so much more time to bring that one kid along.
But
So-
I think ultimately, and I get your point, but I think ultimately kind of what maybe Brian's trying to get at is like, there's always more, right? There's always more we can provide for the kids. There's always another position. There's always more enrichment, more curriculum, more training, more this, more money, more money, more money, more money.
Mm-hmm.
Where is the line between what everyone in the town should pay for
So,
and what, do you know what I'm saying?
no, I understand what you're saying. So my concern is,
Madam Chair, may I call the question?
sure, we can call the question. It's going to again be a philosophy issue. I think that people spoke on that one. I wish.
And we do need to remember that, and I said this before, at the budget committee level, the budget committee needs to focus on expenditures and not policy.
Well,
It's not
part
a
of
po-
expenditures
It's not a
is what we should
policy-making
spend.
body. And policy making is left to the school board, the board of selectmen. And we need to remember that we need to focus on finances and not policy.
I agree in part, but there, like Nikki is saying, though, there's going to be times when money influences policy.
Well, absolutely.
And I think this is one of those cases
That's
that
when you
we're.
deal with the monetary.
But I'm just saying, as someone, a lot of us, I've heard it a
Called
couple
it.
times, and I've
So before we continue debate, and so we can get roaring, let's do that. I'm sorry, Nikki.
no, it's not. No, all right, whatever.
Go ahead, finish. Go ahead.
No, it's fine.
I'm sorry. So, any other issues and concerns with the school ballot? Any other things that stood out, people wanted to comment on, concerns with?
Well, just in terms of a voter and how the voter's perspective, the phrase that I've heard a couple times, and I know I've said it, is, well, when I was in school, it was like this. That is people's reference point. People that aren't clued into education, either their children are graduated or they don't have children. They don't know what's going on in a school right now, but their money is going towards these schools. So I think there is a gap in understanding. If all I see on the ballot is part-time tutor, well, when I was in school, if you needed a tutor, like, why should I pay for that? No, click.
Right.
Like, that's part of the thinking, is that educating people what is it really like in a school today? What are the requirements for what needs to be funded? What has changed over time? I think that information would be very important to the voters and for people to understand better what they're voting for and why it is important that we fund such and such and such. And what is the reality of a school today? People, I don't have kids. I don't plan to have kids. So personally, I'm disconnected from the school.
I will agree with that. And I know that when I was thinking about the ballots and how the vote came out, that we heavily focused on one particular warrant or two. And a lot of the other ones did not get explained. And I agree wholeheartedly with that position, and that we do need to do a better job. I wish I had taken the time to advocate more forcefully for the enrichment tutor, but I didn't. And so I wish, that there is an obligation on behalf of the school board and the board and the budget committee when we advocate for certain things to actually educate instead of assuming people are going to disagree. So I agree. All right. So any other election results, comments, move on to, since we're jumping around this agenda, since I've done a great job this time, we'll move back to member input and new business. I actually did, using the old last year's budget committee calendar, used it as an opportunity to draft this year's budget calendar. I didn't want to put it out until I knew who was in charge. So then the big thing to note is, like, next month, our regular scheduling meeting would fall during April break. And since I don't necessarily agree that that's a great idea, took the initiative to move the April meeting a week ahead to April 18th. As we continued before, no meeting in July. The goal would be to continue with the similar presentation of last year, where the town presented 2 weeks. Then we took 2 weeks off. Then we skipped a meeting, and then we did our voting. And then for the town also, similar as we did this year. I think we did 3 presentations, took some time, and then moved to voting. The main things that became a little more difficult would be the fact that October 31st, they usually use the parking lot or they have been in the last couple of years for that
The Halloween.
So I skipped that week. So we, it pushed us out like, I think 1 week relative to last year, but it's the same number of meetings and similar schedule format. So,
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a proposal to this committee on the calendar this year.
yes,
Happy to, this is truly the will of the committee and what you guys want to do, right? My recommendation would be to take a similar approach to that of the school, right?
Saturday.
On a Saturday, right? Instead of having 4, 8, 12 plus meetings to go through town and school budgets, right? We're there, we have dedicated time, right? We're not rushed to meet a 9 o'clock deadline or whatever the timelines that we talk about and set forth, right? And we can actually have a substantive conversation on some of these budget reviews.
So I love the idea of a Saturday meeting. I think we would have to consider whether it would be possible to do the town and the school on the same Saturday.
Sure.
God, we did it once. No.
Well, but
And then I would just say that voting obviously would have to be after, so we would still need placeholders for Thursday meetings to vote. I don't
The
think it would be
review.
appropriate, right? So just
right, and that's actually in our bylaws as well. So, yep.
I'm not a fan of it. I'll say that, but it'll be the will of the people, and we can do that if we want. I will say that I will probably, my eyes will glaze over. As much as I love your spreadsheets and numbers, it's a lot of information to absorb at once. And so for me, breaking it up into smaller chunks allows me to digest it more reasonably and come up with questions. So I like the current schedule, but that's just me. So, but again, if everybody decides to go the other way, we'll make it work.
I don't think I have a preference one way or the other.
Saturdays are my work days. I work on Saturdays, so.
Just FYI, the town, I don't know how many years ago, 3 or 4 years ago at least, tried a Saturday with doing all of their budgets with all the departments. We went back to to the sporadic, and mostly because of what Carrie said. Sometimes you get on overload and then you can't necessarily process all of you don't get all the information that you need to get in that one session. We found out taking it one at a time, and then if you have to come back the next week. And I'm certainly not going to offer any preference. I'm just telling you that we decided to go back.
So I think it's a good recommendation and proposal. I think we think about it and we come back and discuss. I don't think we want to make the decision tonight, so.
Fine.
So I think that's a radical change, not necessarily bad, but so digest think about.
Throwing a lot
thoughts-
at you tonight, I'm sorry.
Thoughts and implications, it's all right. First,
I can say that it was helpful to have the heads of the different departments here to give the presentation. It was different, the questions that we could ask, I think we were able to get to the heart of certain things quicker with having that person in the room. So I would be wondering about people's availability, if it's different at night versus a Saturday, I don't know if it would change their.
Yep, valid point.
all right, so we'll make a note to consider the implications. Saturday. And your proposal would be to do both of them not in the same Saturday or 2 different Saturdays?
I would think we would want to break it up, but I appreciate the idea to do it all at once. I guess my original vision was to do this over, 2 or 3 or 4 sessions, but have them be like half day type things. But I also understand that's a lot of commitment from a lot of people on the weekends, which is family time, right? But so isn't during the workday and in the evenings. So.
All right, so we'll discuss. So everybody think about it, ponder.
I can also go either way, right? I'm just throwing out the idea.
I appreciate thinking outside the box and coming at it with a different angle. I'll leave it. Appreciate the suggestion. So Any other comments, or thoughts about it other than conflicts that we know? Well, I guess we don't know if we have conflicts if we go to Saturdays. All right.
When's Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving
Is it
is in
that?
between. It's the 29th, 28th.
In between the two.
28th,
Okay.
between November and December 5th. So, yes. Okay. So then the bylaws. Did everybody have a chance to look over them, read them?
Vaguely familiar.
Yeah, I mean, didn't you help write these way back in the day?
Yes.
I think there's been an update and modification to like online postings and whatnot. Social media has been.
Is there? Because I didn't see that any other one I printed out.
Really? I'm pretty sure this is the current one that was, unless, yeah, I can double check with John because the site's under construction, so the latest one that was posted isn't really available, so I went.
Well, I'm
relied on-
assuming this is the latest because of the,
I relied on
dates.
my email.
on page 7? 6.
Under electronic recordings of meetings.
We're at a disadvantage because we don't have,
There was a change made.
Right.
They were revised.
After this date? I
Yeah, so I,
6/28 was the most recent.
Right, I think that's the one I am looking at.
If you want to look at it.
628, yep.
right, so the official record is the budget committee minutes, and I think we all understand that. The question that I have for the bylaws in particular is what's our process on continuing to be transparent to the community through the Litchfield What's Up page or whatever mechanism that we're using?
One of my bullets is, should we have someone to provide regular budget committee updates?
How has that worked over the past couple of years, if I may?
When you left, I think that left too.
So Cindy started it last year, and then it definitely fell off. But I agree that the transparency is needed. I'll be honest, I just don't have the time to do it, so I wouldn't be able to do it. But if someone is willing to
I think if we go that route, we
provide a
should have
recap,
a designated person so that that person is like, they
Right.
know to look for that
I think Andrew
person.
would be great at
I would be glad to take that on if that's something the committee is interested in doing again.
Personally, I thought it was incredibly invaluable and I also,
I'd be good at that too.
Over the 3 likes that I got.
no, but I think because of your background, you're very like factual and to the point. There's no, very little editorializing. It's, this is what we did. This is, this is what we did. This is what happened. Move on. It was very factual and the engineer in me loved it.
Engineering of it. Okay.
No, it's just very factual. It's just, there's no feelings. It's facts. This is what happened.
I think the only thing we have to remind ourselves as committee members is, like, if Andrew puts a post out with an update and there becomes a debate, we have to recognize our role as budget committee members. So separating out our personal viewpoint, which may differ.
And you don't
from-
want to have a quorum.
you cannot do that. You cannot
Right.
do any work or any consideration, any voting, anything electronically
So I think it's.
without convening a meeting.
Right, so I think what was done is the one page up, the one post, we had a meeting, this is what was done, and then just leave it. Because it really was just more of a summary of what happened at the meeting.
Or couldn't you end it with, please email budget committee,
Turn
blah,
off
blah, blah,
comment.
and shut off the
Yeah,
comments?
So turn off commenting is probably the most appropriate thing to do.
We're getting more
But that,
technical, but
but that seems like it's exclusive. So if people have a question,
yeah, I want it to be a communication mechanism. So I don't necessarily like that idea, but what we can say is if there are comments, they will be addressed during a meeting and in the
Correct.
next
I
post.
think that's what we,
Exactly.
And so we don't have a running dialogue.
You can receive an email and address it at the meeting. You can have them come in and address.
right? So the standard response should be,
Correct.
please email budget committee at Litchfield.
right.
Exactly.
Is this being put on the town's Facebook page, not the What Up page or whatever?
No,
it is?
the what's up page.
So,
Yeah, but that's not a town page.
It isn't. You're
No,
correct.
but-
And the moderators of that page kick people off. They ban them from the page. So not everybody in the town has access to that page.
And that's a very good point. You probably should, if you're doing anything official, go to the budget committee page on the town website.
we have
Yeah. So I think it's two different things. So I think absolutely we should post it on the Litchfield, New Hampshire page. But I think in order to increase transparency within the community,
Can I
put it
share it?
on,
Yeah, you can share the budget committee one
Right.
too, like, I
on the
think John
what's
has
up
been
page.
doing that for the Board of Selectmen, like you post it to the town and then share the town's page to the WhatsApp page.
Correct. School board does the same.
And then,
Chair,
go ahead.
have the bylaws been reviewed by council?
I'm not sure.
I think
Only,
so.
only to make sure
I believe they were when we originally drafted them.
nothing is in conflict with the state law for the Municipal Budget Act.
All I know, these have originated in 2016.
I recall having that
so
conversation years ago, but happy to have them re-reviewed if that's
I
something of
can
interest.
make sure to send them to you. Do you have this copy? And then you
I
can-
don't.
Alright.
We have not seen that.
Alright.
And,
That would be wonderful.
yeah,
I
if you,
believe they were,
okay,
because they were done in conjunction with NHMA,
perfect.
but I'll send it to you anyway.
Okay, and we can make sure, just for your sake, that,
Right.
we're not operating outside the Municipal Budget Act.
No, absolutely. And it does say here, and we can always respond, any questions, comments, or information that arises will be, may be taken up at subsequent official meeting. So the recognition that electronic isn't going to be the meeting of record. So
Just have to be really careful with RSA 91A.
Yeah.
Um,
that's the quorum one, right?
The,
Or-
It's a right to
you
know.
know,
Let's-
right to know law.
Yeah.
We try to be very, very diligent in making sure that the townspeople
Right.
know, we follow it diligently. And we haven't had any issues. And whenever we have an issue, we consult counsel.
We've had our hands slapped, which is why some of us are very gun shy about the whole meeting, talking outside of meetings.
Right, and it's true. You got to be really careful.
So speaking of which brings to another thing, would be the chain of discussion, especially once we get to budget season, just so that you, questions that would arise would be filtered through the chair, and then I would send it to the liaisons there. So just so that we don't have everybody emailing everybody.
Right.
This way, when somebody does pull a 91A, it's easier to pull it all together anyway.
Right, and questions should
Right, so
be directed to the chair.
conduit there. So when the season comes, you'll be seeing emails from me. These is the summary of the questions. And that way, then you can go to your department heads, your board of selectmen, and get your answers there. And Rob, but he did this last year. Let's see. And then with the NHMA, I don't know if it'll be an issue here because we have a lot of new people, but questions, we do have the ability to contact them with questions, and those questions have traditionally been filtered also through the chair.
They will only answer to the,
Yep.
from the chair,
Right.
because they would have so many people,
No worries.
emailing.
So then the bylaws, I don't believe we're allowed, according to our bylaws, we had to vote on them at the next meeting. We do not.
Right, so we review, so similar to what you're
Yep.
saying, right?
So-
Where we review and then vote on a separate night unless
Unless
there's
it's
any
decided.
changes.
She
Yeah.
can send Rob.
Right.
I have.
So just to circle back on the social media
Bob,
posts,
the other
I
way.
want to be very clear on process, right? So I am clear on how to do this, right? We're going to keep commenting open. We're going to share it to the Litchfield NH page first. That's where it's going to be created, and then share it to the What's Up page. Any community feedback can be certainly given. We welcome that, right? But it will be reviewed at the next scheduled committee meeting
Yes.
and go from there.
So, sorry, I hate to be technical, but you're not gonna have access to post on the Litchfield NH page, only the selectmen have access to that, or the town.
Do we have a
has access
budget
to
committee Facebook page?
We don't.
Yeah.
That was the next point, is how do I do that?
it. So he can't post on the Litchfield, New Hampshire.
Oh, right. We check with John for now and
Well, we'll talk to John, see if we can get that
talk
set
to
up.
John and see how.
So you'll do that? You'll look into that for me? Or do you want
Do
me to talk to him?
me a favor, remind me. Maybe we could both do.
I'm gonna write it down so I remember.
Okay.
I don't write it down.
And that's actually a nice segue into the next topic if we're ready to move on.
Go ahead.
And this is something that I had asked be added to the agenda, as well as email access.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So currently we have a situation where we have an IT manager who is a former board of selectman who still has access to town infrastructure, including email notifications, and therefore, I suppose, has the information that's being exchanged amongst elected officials. Is that true? To the best of your knowledge?
And if it is, it's all public record anyway, as soon as it goes on to an email.
Mhm.
So it doesn't matter who has access to it.
Respectfully, isn't this a discussion that should be brought to the board of selectmen and not?
Right, that shouldn't be a budget
I guess
committee discussion.
I think that's fine, but the concern that I had was access to budget committee communications.
But that's public record, Andrew. Anybody should have access to that. If you're going to put anything in an email on a town site, that's public record. Anybody has access to it. You have no exclusive right to keep that
And I'm not
under
suggesting,
91A.
and I'm not suggesting that I ever would, right? And everything that I have is fully transparent.
Mhm.
For me personally, I think that's a little bit of a concern.
I think I'm not going to speak out for you, but I think one of the concerns would be then there's a difference between having unfettered, easy, immediate access and pulling a 91A. I mean, so yes, it's all public record, but you actually have to go down. Isn't there a form or something you have to fill out? You have to.
No, not necessarily.
So, I mean, there's a process that has to be followed. So I'm just saying, otherwise to get unfettered, immediate access, you'd have to pull a 91A every day. As opposed to.
You certainly could.
Right. What I'm saying is yes, it's all public record and yes, it's available, but there's a little bit more legwork that has to go into the 91A, I guess. I don't know.
Not much.
Okay.
And I don't feel that's an issue at all, to be honest with you, Andrew. You have IT managers that come in, have unfettered access to corporations, everything. As long as they're doing internet access, internet issues, they have access to everything within that corporation.
So I would assume that IT position, it's a paid position.
Yes.
So I would assume that there was some sort of
Contract.
non-disclosure or some sort of confidentiality agreement that would
And
be signed.
and
for
I
any
couldn't
IT
answer
director?
that. I don't know that.
That could be the resolution.
Yeah.
Because anyone who holds the IT director, regardless of whether they held office, they could be from out of town, whenever they would have that access. One would assume that the town would make sure that they have some sort of non-disclosure.
My ask would be for the board to look into that.
My major concern with the whole IT thing has been resolved since the person who holds the position is no longer a selectman. Originally, when we had this discussion, I remember the budget committee was concerned about that aspect, and that's since resolved itself. So I have less of an issue. So.
Right. And personally, I don't have an issue at all. I know the person.
To me, it wasn't a personal issue. It was more of a potential perception. I mean, we had issues at the school board
Sure.
way back when we had somebody resign because of a perception that the person never did, but it was perceived to be. So I tend to try to avoid any instance that could possibly be perceived. So regardless of who's in the position.
Right. And I completely understand that.
Right.
And I think that we work very hard to make sure that doesn't.
Right. So as I said, I understand Andrew's concern, but my major concern has been resolved. That the IT is no longer being fulfilled by a person who oversees the IT. So that's that. Let's see. Budget and then now we'll turn the floor to you for your budget analysis.
Yes. So let me turn on the TV, and I think this is going to be projected right as well, so everyone at home can see.
All right, the reflection is probably
Sorry.
off the top.
That's why I didn't sit there. So just to kind of ground everybody, right? One of the things that I've done when I was formerly on the committee is done a lot of analysis, right? Being a facts-driven type of guy. What I have here, and I don't know if anyone's seen these types of Excel sheets over the past couple of years or not. Have you guys used this? Yes?
Not here.
Not here. Okay.
Yeah, I think we all cried when you left.
Okay, so I have actual data that goes back into 2004, right? And the 2004, and we've changed some accounts over time, et cetera, and all that's reflected here. So this is truly what I would call a master list of accounts, your chart of accounts, right? So I have 2004 budget versus what we actually spent. And I have that information all the way through 2018 budget and actual. And then I actually also rolled into another file that I have here, the 2019 approved budget per line item, where we can actually drill into and do some quite some nice analysis. Right. So I haven't finished playing around with how I exactly want to present it, right, for next year. But this has raised a lot of questions for the current year. So I don't need to spend all the time tonight going through row by row by row and questions, because I'm certain, right, we're going to want our town administrator to research some of these. So what I'll propose is I'll put together a list of questions, send it to the chair, and we'll go from there, if that works. One of the things that I do have, though, which is kind of nice, and again, I'm still working on the presentation of this, but this is by account that is presented from the town. And just, some quick facts, right? The town was at 4.9 million in the 2014-15 timeframe, and now is at the 6.7 million. Right. And that's quite a bit of growth. Now, there's a lot of factors that go into that, such as the fire department, increased Penachuk costs, all of these things to keep up with the services. Right. But there's also quite a bit of money that I feel has been unexpended. Do you happen to know what the amount last year that was budgeted that was not spent?
I don't have that right now, and I certainly could get it, but I don't have that at this point.
Yeah, and that's fine. So the number that I'm thinking of is somewhere in the $350,000 range
The town?
for the town.
Oh, I don't have it, but I don't think it's anywhere near that.
Okay.
Because I remember at a meeting in December, we were having some issues, at Highway, we're having breakdowns, we're having, so I don't want to.
And that doesn't include
Speculate.
encumbered, right? So whatever you've encumbered from that year end, I don't necessarily know that right now,
Oh, okay.
right? So if it, whatever is encumbered from the board,
Yeah. See, a lot of the encumbrances at the end were repairs to the plow trucks, the equipment, there were several encumbrances at the end.
so taking that out of consideration, the actual number I think is somewhere in the $350,000 range. And just quickly looking at 2019 and some of the budget numbers, just so we're all clear on where I'm coming from, I think there's at least in excess of $500,000 in the town budget, at least.
Do you have it broken out as to where you think those areas might be?
Yeah, I mean, so not to be presented tonight.
Okay.
More to come, right? But just I wanted to get the committee thinking about how I'm viewing this, right, in this historical aspect. We can run 3-year, 5-year averages. We can look at actual account level details. Yes, I saw it, and I thank you for addressing some of the increased costs, like at the kennel, right? Because I'm like, how can our heating cost go through the roof? Right, but that helps explain your explanation. So there's some questions like that I have.
Right. And of course, the new building is going to result in and we did anticipate increased costs for the new building and to keep the old building.
Yeah.
Because the will of the voter wanted us to keep that building also. So we're going to have to maintain that. So we basically had to keep funds in the budget for both.
But they wanted it not knocked down. I don't know that we need to, there's a lot of stuff I think we could.
But, we have to protect it. And
I know, but we don't need.
until the
plumbing.
determination is.
We don't need Wi-Fi there. There's a lot of stuff we don't need over there that we could.
And I can't say off the top of my head that one of the numbers that was interesting to me was the level of IT assets that skyrocketed over last year. I mean,
I'm sorry?
Infrastructure, the IT infrastructure.
Yeah.
There was quite a bit. I'm assuming for the fire department, I would
Yes.
think.
And, because it was all new. They ran
It wasn't
from.
budgeted.
No, because we had no idea at that point. But we had to run all new, a whole new system. And in the event that the police station is approved and built, that whole infrastructure will be there and ready for that as that went over underground, over to that side.
I believe we received a replacement plan that was proposed for because the IT did come up, like there were antennas or the radios. There was I'll see if I can find it.
Communication, I don't think it was IT specific, was it?
But I think that all falls under their, doesn't that fall into their budget?
So, I mean, anyways, right? So I have these fancy graphs. I can literally click on any one of these, right? And we're looking at numbers from 16, 17, 18. And actually I rolled in 19 as well, so we can see how we trend. Now, I'm also not ready to present tonight the school. However, I've done similar analysis for the school that I'm still working through. And then the numbers will likely be shocking to you.
Mm-hmm.
But again, we're seeing it, right? And we've talked about it tonight, less money coming from the state. We introduced kindergarten. There are reasons, right? There's a lot of it that's justified, but we should understand it.
When you're done with the files, will you share them with the committee?
I'll be glad to share this with you tomorrow.
Perfect.
That's it for my side.
I think it's good to get the discussion going now, because once we get into budget season, at least it'll give we have a lot of new faces. It's a good time to get some history and some getting familiar with what we're looking at. So any comments, questions on that?
Cool stuff. Welcome back.
Absolutely. I may have sent.
You're young Bill Spencer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry, Bill, I don't mean that.
No. I'll never replace Bill, that's for sure.
Another guy.
No, analysis is good and fine, and asking questions is excellent. Let us, we'll certainly get the information.
And it comes back to transparency, right? So people understand
Yep.
when
we
they
have no
see it at the
issue.
budget that they know that we've actually looked at it and it's not just.
And just the last point on member input, if I may.
Absolutely.
I'd just like to give a shout out and a special thanks to Cindy Couture,
Mhm.
right, who had spent many years serving our town.
Absolutely.
Cindy, thank you very much.
And you'll likely be hearing from me as I have questions. So I don't know if it's a promise or a warning, but I'll take you either way. So one of the things that one of the reasons why we met or wanted to meet in March as opposed to April like we did last year is we had talked last year about doing an in-house training with the NHMA, but we came up against they have a blackout date. They black it out through budget season. So one of the things to do is if we start that now, by starting a little earlier, we have more time in the schedule to hopefully get them in-house. But before we reach out to them, I want to make sure that that's something we're all interested in. And then we'll take the vote and authorize me to speak to them on behalf of that. Because we had it a few years ago. They came in, we opened it up to the other departments. It was really, I thought, very informative and very good because they focused on the role of the budget committee, like the things were your obligations, responsibilities, and those kind of things. But there was also an opportunity to ask questions. And I know Nikki went to the actual training, right, on a Saturday or something, but it's last year. But it's very challenging for a lot of us.
It was during the week.
Yeah, all right. So it was during
Yeah.
the week. So it's difficult to get to. And when we have this many new faces, both here and on the Board of Selectmen, in my opinion, it's worth considering having them or trying to get them to come in and have a presentation here.
They do outstanding presentations. They do several classes on various subjects. And yeah, I'm a tad prejudiced because I have one more year. I still sit on the board, but they do offer outstanding opportunities for learning for both new selectmen and new budget committee members.
Yep.
And we certainly encourage that.
So the goal would be to have it during a regularly scheduled meeting, which is why we started a little earlier this year. So I guess the first question would be, is this something as a committee we would be interested in doing? Is trying to see if we can have them come in. Unless
Sure.
you all want to go and try to find some weekday. Okay. So then I will reach out to them and make sure, see if we can get that ball rolling. I have the contact information that Cindy had last time and we'll start that going.
I can help you with that.
All right, well, we'll have to talk to you guys anyway because the budget committee doesn't have a budget. So we have to talk to you anyway as to how to pay for.
Oh, okay.
When I went, it had come out of the
There's a
Board
training.
of Selectmen.
There's a training line item, but it was very reasonable considering the
Yeah,
amount
as
of.
far as I'm concerned, the information they offer is invaluable. I learned an incredible amount of stuff, even though I had been operating in the system for years. Just the references to the new laws, the new RSAs, you almost can't keep up because the legislature passes new laws every year, and especially this year they've redone 91A again.
Mhm.
So we have to keep up with that. And the more complicated government gets, the more important it is for town officials to keep out of trouble by following the laws and regulations. So.
They are having another training Saturday, June 8th up in Concord. I had registered for. I can forward you the email.
Now, Nikki, which one is that? The budget one? Is that the
That's the local officials
local
workshop.
officials workshop? That's
Yeah.
excellent.
the budget one I had went to last year, I found really helpful. Not having a lot of budget background myself. But this is the local officials workshops. They do them like throughout the state, but Concord was really the closest.
Let's see if we can get the list and get this sent out, because I think there are funds available through the Board of Selectmen and the training to help offset those costs. So if people are interested in going, it's definitely a worthwhile investment, because hope to see a lot of you guys around for a while. So let's get everybody, and you're gonna provide a better service to the taxpayers when we understand what our role and responsibilities are, and what laws need to govern our behavior and interactions and all those fun things. So, because it's very easy to find yourself getting your wrist slapped. So let's try to avoid that. Let's see. Anything else on public input? Anybody have anything they want to say? Speak now, forever hold your peace.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, motion to adjourn second. All in favor? Aye. All right, meeting adjourned. We'll see you again on April 18th.
I'm actually.
Oh.